Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Paul Greeny. Here are today's top stories. The next step towards the Senate impeachment trial of President Trump is set to begin. This after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced she will send the articles of impeachment to the Senate tomorrow. France, Britain and Germany trigger a dispute that could prompt the return of UN sanctions on Iran, this adding to the Iranian regime's troubles. The Democratic Party's 7th presidential debate is set to take place in Iowa tonight. The field of candidates has shrunk, but the tension between them is growing. As Sinkhole in China opens up, this under a bus, swallowing the vehicle and its passengers. The search and rescue work is ongoing. And from Europe to Asia to America, Shen gave more than 14 shows around the globe over the weekend. Find out what makes this dance performance so popular. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is preparing to send the articles of impeachment to the Senate tomorrow. She confirmed the news this morning after Representative Hakeem Jeffries made the announcement.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi indicated on Tuesday that a new resolution will hit the House floor on Wednesday. It's the resolution responsible for sending the impeachment articles to the Senate and names the Democrats who will present the prosecution's case against the president. The decision comes after Pelosi delayed sending the articles for nearly 4 weeks. Some Democrats defended the choice.
What she wanted is the American people to understand that we needed to have a transparent process and that the trial must be fair.
While Republicans said that Democrats rushed through the House's impeachment inquiry only to see Pelosi implement a delay.
They spent 4 weeks demonstrating through their actions that impeachment is actually not that urgent.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer have butted heads over setting the rules for the trial. Democrats still hope to call acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney to testify, as well as former National Security Advisor John Bolton. But McConnell has pushed for holding a later vote to decide, citing the Senate guidelines for the 1999 trial of President Bill Clinton.
I'm comfortable with the Clinton model, which is we hear the opening arguments first, and then we'll have a vote on whether or not to have witnesses.
On the other hand, some lawmakers are calling for the senators running for president in 2020 to excuse themselves from the trial.
Will the 4 candidates for office for President of the United States be impartial jurors? 4 people that's trying to fire the President of the United States in the election process, how can they be impartial jurors?
But it will fall to the Senate.
McConnell said Tuesday that the Senate trial would likely start on January 21st.
And sobriety.
Vice President Mike Pence swore in General John J. Raymond as the first chief of space operations for the U.S. Space Force today. Raymond has been working as the first chief since the Space Force was established in December. He stressed the importance of the new position to bolstering U.S. military strength and deterring conflicts in space. Trump created the new Space Force in February 2019 with the signing of the Space Policy Directive 4. The Space Force will operate under the Air Force, much like the Marines is under the U.S. Navy, but will have authority and independence over its resources. The new force is the first new branch of the U.S. military in more than 70 years. And 6 candidates take to the stage tonight at the CNN Des Moines Register Democratic presidential debate in Iowa. This is the last face-to-face meeting of the hopefuls prior to the Hawkeye State's all-important caucuses.
Fireworks already sparking, and the 6 Democratic presidential candidates haven't even taken the stage yet. The controversy is between Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
Disappointed to hear that Bernie is sending his volunteers out to trash me. Bernie knows me and has known me for a long time.
Warren says Sanders told her in 2018 that a woman couldn't win the White House. Sanders, in a statement to CNN, calls the claim ludicrous to believe.
I think that there are a certain number of people who would like to see a woman elected, and I understand that.
Former Vice President Joe Biden, as a frontrunner, takes center stage at the debate.
I think we represent the broadest coalition of people, not just any one segment of the party, but young, old, brown, black, people women, men.
Former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg says it's time for a different kind of leader.
The purpose of the presidency is not for the glorification of the president. It's for the unification and the empowerment of the American people.
Meanwhile, businessman Tom Steyer.
I think that the thing that has put me on this stage, and it is the same for every single person who's running for president, is message.
And Senator Amy Klobuchar hope to boost their profiles during the debate.
Return to sanity. So that is my plan.
The Treasury Department has dropped its designation of China as a currency manipulator. This just days before top U.S. and Chinese officials are due to sign a new trade agreement.
The U.S. Treasury Department says China will no longer be branded a currency manipulator. The move on Monday is seen as a symbol of goodwill as the two countries get ready to sign a trade deal.
No longer designating China as a currency manipulator will allow the Chinese to know that there won't be an extra tariff to offset any devaluation that might happen. They won't be surprised by that different type of tariff. So I think it's a fair request, I think, by the Chinese at this point. And I think that the administration, in good faith, did it because both sides wanted a deal.
Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin first slapped Beijing with the label back in August when trade tensions were soaring. It was the first time the Treasury had done so in 25 years. Mnuchin accused China of deliberately holding down the value of its currency to make its goods cheaper to sell overseas. But according to the Treasury's latest report, China has made, quote, enforceable commitments to refrain from competitive devaluation. It also noted that China's yuan currency has bounced back after hitting a low against the dollar in September. The world's two largest economies are getting ready to sign a deal to ease an 18-month-long trade war. Chinese Vice Premier Liu He is in Washington ahead of the ceremony, set to take place on Wednesday.
A recent landslide victory for Taiwan's re-elected president represents a strong pushback against Beijing's encroachment on the island's right to self-govern. But aside from implications for Beijing and Taipei, experts say the re-election also brings a positive outlook for U.S.-Taiwan relations. This includes a potential free trade agreement.
People call it a showdown between pro-Beijing and pro-U.S. camps in Taiwan. The Taiwanese 2020 election just secured another 4 years for its current president, Tsai Ing-wen. Experts say this brings the U.S. and Taiwan another step closer to a free trade agreement. Walter Lohman from the Heritage Foundation said closer trade ties with the U.S. are certainly a priority for Tsai, but the U.S. is also showing signs that it's ready and willing.
I think that it's possible. I think that USTR has the resources to do it, and I think this administration is the least sensitive about what the Chinese think about things, that it may actually move forward. So I think this is going to be a big year on that front that is encouraging this, and I think it can happen.
Taiwan is currently the 11th largest trading partners with the U.S. Representative Ted Yuho said the business community are already laying eyes outside of China because of increasing concerns of IP theft and China's aggressive regulations. He said Taiwan could be one of the beneficiaries of this trend.
If I'm a manufacturer, do I want to go through the red tape and the regulations and the intellectual property theft in China? Or do I want to just forget that and market to this group out here where I don't have to worry about that? And that's what we're seeing companies do, is they're going over, and I think you're going to see more people do that.
Reporting by Kitty Wong and Penny Zhou, NTD News.
France, Britain and Germany have triggered a mechanism that puts the Iranian nuclear deal into dispute. If no resolution is reached, Iran could face a reactivation of UN sanctions.
European powers have formally put the Iran nuclear deal in dispute. France, Britain and Germany triggered a mechanism on Tuesday that amounts to accusing Iran of violating the deal's terms and could lead to snapback, a return to the UN sanctions that were lifted in 2015 when the agreement was signed. It's the strongest step the three have taken to enforce it. They said they wanted to prevent a nuclear proliferation crisis, adding to the escalating standoff between Tehran and Washington, which peaked with the killing of Iran's top military commander, Qasem Soleimani, on January 3rd. Iran's foreign ministry condemned what it called a passive action and said it would support any act of goodwill to save the deal. The deal requires Iran to curb its nuclear program, which it has always insisted is peaceful. But US President Donald Trump pulled the United States out in 2018, saying it was too weak. Washington has ramped up sanctions that are severely damaging Iran's economy. Since then, Iran has reduced its compliance, saying the Trump administration's actions give it the right. Earlier this month, it said it would scrap all limits on its uranium enrichment, but keep cooperating with the UN nuclear watchdog. The question is now whether the European powers' step is a nail in the deal's coffin. One man who seems to think so is Boris Johnson. Britain's Prime Minister is calling for it to be scrapped and replaced with a new, quote, Trump deal.
But if we're going to get rid of it, then we need a replacement.
I think it has to be clear that
the EU, which acts as guarantor and must now inform fellow signatories Russia, China and Iran itself, said it wanted a return to compliance, not to sanctions.
14 performances in 7 different cities on one single day. Find out what makes this New York-based classical Chinese dance company Shen so popular. NTD's Sherwin Rong has the story.
A performance audiences say go deeper than just a beautiful display. Is the internal connection between the performers and the audience.
Transcendent, just transcending. It's mind, body, spirit, everything.
Amazing beauty. I got chills all over my body, moved to tears.
While most performing arts groups that stick to traditional techniques struggle to survive in the modern age, Shen expanded from 6 to 7 dance companies this year that travel simultaneously around the world with one mission: reviving the traditional values that were once at the core of ancient Chinese culture.
You know, there's something about this culture that resonates, I think, deeply in people all over the world because it's the same values and it's the same foundational idea and these principles that we're depicting on stage. And when people see the show, they reconnect with it.
Ancient Chinese culture placed emphasis on the divine and virtue. For thousands of years, classical Chinese dance was used to express those values.
The values and history of a country, I think, are important for young people too. Young people must know history and have all these things, know them and be able to also practice them.
I thought that was a really beautiful mission, that there's such the mind-body spiritual mission part of it that seems to have maybe been kind of squelched over the years, that they're wanting to bring that back. I think that's very important. It's a crazy world we live in, and you know, I think we all need to remember that at heart we're all the same. You know, that but to keep your culture is so important because you don't want to lose that part of what makes each culture unique.
And this performance connecting people and cultures around the world. Reporting by Sherwin Rong, NTD News.
And coming up next, a sinkhole in China opens up under a bus, swallowing the vehicle and its passengers. That and more after the break.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
An over 30-foot wide sinkhole opened up in northeast China today, swallowing a bus and leaving at least 6 people dead.
A sinkhole swallowed a bus with pedestrians in northeast China this Monday, killing 6 people. The state media says 16 are injured and 10 more are missing. Surveillance footage shows people were waiting for the bus when the ground suddenly opened up, swallowing the bus and those standing close to it. Some people fled. A handful others stayed on the edge trying to rescue the people in the hole, but they also plunged into the pit when it suddenly expanded. The bus sank deeper into the hole, followed by an explosion and a plume of heavy smoke. Beijing News reported the hole was around 33 feet in diameter and at least 39 feet deep. The incident happened outside a hospital in Xining, China. State-owned media says the search and rescue work is ongoing. Sinkholes are not uncommon in China, where they are often blamed on the construction work and the country's rapid pace of development.
New research finds almost 2 million people in Hong Kong, about a third of its adult population, are estimated to have experienced symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. This after months of social unrest in the city.
According to the study, the number was 6 times higher than 4 years ago. Levels of depression are comparable to trauma produced by terrorist attacks and war zones. Hong Kong has a population of 7.5 million, of which 6.3 million are adults. The protests began last June, focusing on a controversial bill that would have allowed the extradition of suspects to mainland China. The bill was later withdrawn, but demonstrations have since evolved into a broader movement demanding investigation into police brutality and democratic reform. As the protests continue, police fired more than 16,000 rounds of tear gas, with about 7,000 people arrested, 2,500 injuries, 2 confirmed deaths, and multiple questionable suicides. The study, published in the Lancet Medical Journal, was based on surveys of more than 18,000 people between 2009 and 2019. It was the largest and longest study of the population-wide impact of social unrest on mental health in the world. Researchers also warned that their findings might underestimate the extent of mental health problems, as they did not include under 18s, who make up a large proportion of pro-democracy protesters.
And coming up next, New York City kicks off its Complete Count campaign in an effort to get an accurate count for the 2020 census.
Our investigative reporters at the Epoch Times have spent 18 months uncovering the biggest political scandal in modern history. We connected the dots around Spygate, the actions by Obama-era officials against Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Join me on Declassified as we bring you up-to-date developments on this unfolding scandal.
Are you tired of newspapers spinning the truth and pushing false narratives? And are you looking for honest coverage of Spygate, the true story of collusion? Or the truth behind the crisis at our southern border? Or how the Chinese Communist Party is working to subvert America and our way of life? Then you need to check out the Epoch Times newspaper. It's independent, nonpartisan, and it doesn't push any political agendas. Just go to readepoch.com and try it yourself for a full month for just $1. You'll absolutely love it.
New York City is launching its $19 million program to help get an accurate count on the 2020 census. This is the biggest campaign to collect the data of any city nationwide. NTD's Kevin Hogan has the story.
Every New Yorker counts.
New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio on Tuesday kicked off the city's $19 million 2020 Census Complete Count campaign. This community rewards program is focused on census-related education and organization across the city.
New York City has started an unprecedented effort to ensure that there's a complete and accurate count. We have not seen this at any local level before.
The census data will determine how much funding the city gets for supplemental nutrition programs like WIC and SNAP, as well as housing, healthcare, hospitals, schools, and transportation over the next decade.
If you don't make this type of investment, your community is going to be struggling with that lack of investment for a 10-year period at least. That has generational ripple effects.
In 2010, only about 60% of New Yorkers self-registered for the census, which is below the national average. According to a census fellow, New York State has a net outflow of tax revenue, but New York City's Census Count Fund can help fix that.
That will help ensure we get our fair share of the dollars that flow out come back into us.
Schools, you need teachers who are...
The Census Bureau had proposed to put a citizenship question on the form, but it may not appear when the census comes out on April 1st.
There is absolutely no question about citizenship on the census.
Still, some members of immigrant communities are hesitant to fill out the census.
We have to earn their trust and get them to believe that they have nothing to lose and nothing to fear by completing the census.
Having an accurate count would ensure that members of the community get representation in city government and that New York would not lose a congressional seat. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
Extraordinary energy.
Also in New York, a lawmaker has proposed barring the city from using terms like illegal immigrant and illegal alien. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more from Manhattan.
New York City may ban the terms illegal alien and illegal immigrant from being used in future laws and documents. If the bill passes, the word alien in city codes would also be replaced with non-citizen. Democratic Councilmember Francisco Moya proposed the bill. He's calling these terms antiquated and divisive.
But we also know that words that are also used to dehumanize people. You don't refer to your neighbor as an alien. You refer to them as a person.
Legally, however, illegal alien is used by federal bodies such as the Supreme Court and Homeland Security to define a foreign-born person who's illegally present in the U.S. Some conservatives say alterations like these could blur the line between legal and illegal immigration, but this law would only affect the city and it wouldn't change anyone's immigration status.
I think that sounds reasonable. I mean, you don't want to stigmatize people by naming them something that is sort of derogatory.
It's more catered to everyone to make them feel more comfortable. You got to be careful about what you say, how you label people, so I understand.
Too much sensitivity going on nowadays for me. Well, then again, maybe I'm just from a different generation. Leave things the way they are. That's all.
Last year, New York City made it illegal to call someone an illegal alien with the intent to demean, humiliate, or harass a person. Doing so could end with as much as a $250,000 fine. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
Toyota announced a recall of almost 700,000 vehicles over safety issues yesterday. The recall involves certain 2018 and 2019 vehicles, including vehicles under both the Lexus and Toyota brands. The recall stems from faulty fuel pumps that could make the vehicles stall. The danger increases if the vehicles stall while driving at high speeds. Toyota is looking into a solution and will provide it free of charge to customers. Owners with affected cars will be notified by mail. Customers can also check online and can call the Toyota or Lexus customer service hotlines for updates. And coming up next, Greece wants its ancient statues back from the UK, but the UK says that they are the rightful owners. More on this 200-year-old controversy after the break.
This season, take an incredible journey through 5,000 years of culture with Shen. Discover why people are calling Shen a visual feast, a pleasure to the ear, an epic tale, a must-see. Shen, an all-new production every year.
Across the world, many museums have obtained their artifacts in ways that may now be considered illicit. One controversial case is that of the Elgin marbles. these ancient sculptures that once adorned Greece's most famous ancient treasure, the Parthenon. The UK and Greece have been fighting over them for more than 200 years. NTD's UK correspondent Jane Worrell has the story.
Gods, deities and people displayed side by side. These 2,500-year-old sculptures in the British Museum are at the centre of one of the longest cultural rows in Europe.
This particular issue can get fairly heated.
The marble sculptures, like the Greek moon goddess's horse, once embellished the Parthenon temple in Athens. That's until the Scottish nobleman Lord Elgin removed half the remaining marbles in the early 1800s. The British Parliament bought them in 1816 and presented them to the British Museum. Greece wants them back. In the Acropolis Museum in Athens, there are casts alongside originals.
In Athens, there is a wonderful new museum itself, an architectural wonder, which is waiting with the half that Elgin left, the half of the marbles, to be reunited with the rest of the marbles.
Geoffrey Robertson was among a team of international lawyers, also including Armand Clooney, who advised the Greek government in 2015 on the return of the marbles.
Elgin was a thief.
But the British Museum says Lord Elgin, the then British ambassador to the Ottoman Empire, had permission to remove the sculptures.
You don't consider that there's an issue around the legality of the sculptures?
Parliament found them to be legally acquired in 1816, although the Vice Chair of the British Committee for the Reunification of the Parthenon marbles notes there is a lack of documentation.
Did he seek and was he given permission to really seriously dismantle the Parthenon? Well, that is what we will never know, I suspect.
The Greek embassy in London said that the Greek Prime Minister made an appeal to all parts involved to reunite the sculptures in Athens in 2021 to mark 200 years of Greek independence. Most of the removed sculptures are in the British Museum, while fragments are also in the Louvre and other museums in Europe.
We'd always be happy, obviously, to have conversations about loans and about lending, not just to Athens, but to other places.
The UK's Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport said, museums operate without political interference. Decisions relating to exchanges and partnerships with other institutions are taken by the executive and trustees of the museum. This row has been raging for over 2 centuries, and it looks like it will continue in the years ahead. Jane Worrell, NTD News, London.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Paul Graney.